Welcome back. Well, we've come to the last class in the Pastoral Leadership course at the Mid-America Center for Ministry. I'm glad that you stuck with me through this time and appreciate the feedback that you've given and the work that you've done so far. So let me wrap things up by starting off with a lame joke. How many leaders does it take to change a light bulb? Leaders don't change light bulbs. They cast visions for a well-lit world that brings peace and prosperity to everyone, starting in the fellowship hall. Over the years, there have been a variety of studies done to try to determine whether leaders are born or whether leaders are made. And there seems to be some evidence for both. But some numbers I heard years ago was that about 2/3 of leaders are made, 1/3 are born. Even born leaders need to be made. The making of a leader, though, is based on practice. It's on doing rather than knowing. So far in this course, you've been really handed a lot of information. It's been a huge data dump, and through the discussions, we've talked about everything from how to hire people to how to fire people, to what it means to recruit and to lead and to hold accountable, setting clear expectations. It just goes on and on and on. You've received so much information. But knowing something does not a leader make. In fact, we know that only about 20% of all leaders are actually successful in their leading. And the prime reason the 80% are not as successful in leadership is because they're not willing to make the sacrifice necessary to achieve mission alignment and vision attainment. They have other things on their plate. They would rather do what works for them or what they like to do rather than what is needed to be done to get the job done. Successful leaders and wannabe leaders, leaders who are invested in becoming the best possible leaders in the future, have some common practices. I'm going to wrap up this course by introducing you to 10 of those common practices, those things that the 20%ers do. First, they're teachable and they're coachable. This is huge because so many pastoral leaders aren't teachable or coachable because they know what they know and they know what they know. Whereas someone who is teachable and coachable, they know what they know, but they also know what they don't know, and they know that what they don't know may be what they think they already know. And they're willing to listen, to suspend, to weigh up, to practice, to try things on to see how it works for them. Second, 20%ers model the values of the organization, which are, not coincidentally, their values, and they embody the mission and the vision in everything they do. Everything that they put their hands to is weighed against mission and vision. Third, they live and breathe priorities. They do the important before they do the urgent. They make sure they get things done that count. Here's a video that illustrates that.
A professor stood before his philosophy class and had some items in front of him. When the class began, he picked up a very large and empty jar and proceeded to fill it with golf balls. He then asked the students if the jar was full. They agreed that it was. The professor then picked up a box of pebbles and poured them into the jar. He shook the jar lightly. The pebbles rolled into the open areas between the golf balls. He then asked the students again if the jar was full. They agreed it was. The professor next picked up a box of sand and poured it into the jar. The sand filled up everything else. He asked once more if the jar was full. The students responded with a unanimous yes. The professor then produced 2 glasses of wine from under the table and poured the entire contents into the jar, effectively filling the empty space between the sand. The students laughed. "Now," said the professor, as the laughter subsided, "I want you to recognize that this jar represents your life. The golf balls are the important things: your family, your children, your health, your friends, and your favorite passions. Things that if everything else was lost and only they remained, your life would still be full. The pebbles are the other things that matter, like your job, your house, your important possessions, and the sand is everything else, the small stuff. If you put the sand into the jar first, he continued, there is no room for the pebbles or the golf balls. The same goes for life. If you spend all your time and energy on the small stuff, you'll never have room for the things that are important to you. Pay attention to the things that are critical to your happiness. Take care of the golf balls first, the things that really matter. Set your priorities. The rest is just sand. One of the students raised her hand and inquired what the wine represented. The professor smiled. I'm glad you asked. It just goes to show you that no matter how full your life may seem, there's always room for a couple of glasses of wine with a friend.
Now, to say those golf balls look a lot like a tennis ball to me, but hey, the concept's the same. 20%ers put the important things in first, and they deal with those as the priorities. Fourth, 20%ers develop relationships with those who show potential, and they refuse to invest in those who refuse to show potential or who refuse to live up to their potential. They draw the line. They invest where they can get the most return on their investment. Those who won't invest in their own lives are left behind. Fifth, 20%ers demand results from those who are around them, the leaders that they depend on. And they will remove those who are unproductive before they have a negative effect on the organization. They simply won't tolerate non-productivity. They will coach, they will lead, they will prod if necessary, but when someone on their team doesn't produce and won't produce or can't produce, they remove them as quickly as possible. Six, 20%ers have a coach. They have a coach who holds them accountable for results, not for attempts, not for trying. Seventh, they make and implement decisions sooner than later. And so they're willing to take the risk to make a bad decision rather than to make no decision or to allow so much time to pass that a decision isn't even necessary. Eighth, they aren't afraid to fail. They're willing to take the risks, and failure is a part of it. And they understand that progress is risky, and that moving forward, that success means moving in a different direction or continuing the direction that they're going that is already proven to be successful, and being willing to fail in order to succeed. Ninth, they take responsibility for the failures. They own it. And when they succeed, they give the credit to others. And last, they know when to quit. They know when they have either reached their potential or they have led the organization as far as they can lead. Sometimes that means looking at a congregation and saying, if you won't follow, I must leave. And not as a threat, just as a flat-out statement of, this is where we're going. If I can't take you there, then you need another leader who can. And I'll go someplace where I can be more effective. Over the course of the last 8 weeks, you've been introduced to the core concepts of effective pastoral leadership. If you're like most students, you'll have picked up a couple of really good tips that will help you do your job in the future as the pastor of the church. But if you're a 20%er, if you're one of those who is going to take your leadership to the nth level, then you'll take what you've learned, you'll contextualize it, you'll apply it to your daily life. You'll do things differently than other pastors, and you know you're going to take some heat for that. 20%ers have a coach, and you'll hold your coach accountable to be the kind of coach you need, who holds you accountable for results. And if they won't, you'll find a new coach. You won't be satisfied with trying or good enough or maybe next time. You'll set clear expectations, and you'll set clear goals, aggressive goals. And you'll measure the results from everything you do. And if the results aren't what you expect, you'll make adjustments. You'll demand results from those around you, and you'll do everything in your power to help others succeed. But when they don't succeed, even though you've helped them with your best efforts and they've given their best efforts, you'll choose to be effective rather than nice, and you will remove them. And finally, you'll make the sacrifices that need to be made to lead the church in today's context. It's been a privilege leading you in this course, and I wish the best for all of you, and I hope that you blow the curve and that you all become 20%ers in the church, because God knows we need you. God bless. I look forward to your final papers.